Welcome to SGS Arts. So today I'm gonna continue my video series on world cinema. Today's topic is snobbery and what I call counter-snobbery or reverse snobbery. So we'll get into the definitions later on. And I'm gonna also share some of your comments on this video, although I'm gonna start this discussion by going at the topic by myself, and then I'll bring your comments later on to the table. Yeah, but I want to make a couple of disclaimers before we get into this somewhat of a controversial topic. So one disclaimer is that I don't support snobbery or counter-snobbery. I think both of these types of behavior, you could say, are harmful. And then the other disclaimer is that I think is important to say in a video like this that my own philosophy of life can be summed up in one kind of very typical sentence: live and let live. And also you could say be free and let others be free. So enjoy whatever you want in life, watch whatever films you want in life. If watching blockbusters makes you happy, if watching Tarkovsky's movies makes other people happy, good for all of you. Whether you are art house lovers or blockbuster lovers or something in between, or whether you love both of them, good for you, good for you. Yeah, I think that's important to say right out of the gate. Yeah. So where should we start this huge discussion? I actually think that I might have some kind of contradictory thoughts about this, so if this video isn't very cohesive, my apologies. Again, this is fairly difficult and multifaceted topic, even though it might not seem like that at first glance. But I actually have here like a definition of a snob. So this is just from internet. When you write snob, and this is the first definition that comes, or the second basically. There are two definitions here, but the other one is more important here. So a person who believes that their tastes in a particular area are superior to those of other people. And we could add to that that they think their tastes are superior, but they also think that it's worth it to go talk down other people who have inferior tastes to them. So it's not just thinking that you are superior, but it's also that you want to show other people that you are superior, and you want to make them feel inferior. So yeah, I think that was missing from that definition. So yeah, I don't support people like this. Again, I've sometimes talked shit about like mainstream cinema on this channel, and I've, for example, in the Sight and Sound videos made fun of Jaws and films like that. But again, when I make fun of those films, I don't mean that I hate people who actually like those films. I just don't happen to love those films myself, and I don't happen to think that they are the greatest films of all time. And again, I happen to think often that I think art house is in some ways superior to mainstream cinema, but I don't think people who love art house cinema are superior to those who love more mainstream cinema. I think that's very important distinction to make. Yeah. And again, I mentioned in one of those in the comment section that I've met so many people in life who don't like consume high art at all, that are very smart. So people who don't like high art, it doesn't mean that they are intellectually inferior to us or that they are stupid or anything, because I've met so many people who are way smarter than me. They maybe are into science, but they aren't into art. So they might not like Tarkovsky, but then when we talk about physics, I know nothing, but they know everything. So yeah, I think that's very important to say. Again, people have different hobbies, and not just some people just aren't into high art. Yeah. And that's again completely fine, even though it often makes me sad that not more people are into art. But again, let live and let live. That's my philosophy basically. And again, when I kind of criticize the fact that not more people are into high art and not more people are into art in general, I kind of make that critique kind of more of a societal critique, and more of a cultural critique rather than kind of talking down to one person. Again, if an individual doesn't like art, then they don't like art. That's fine. Or maybe they like only mainstream types of art, pop culture, but they don't like high art. Again, good for them, good for them. But at the same time, it just often makes me sad when I kind of have seen that I feel like art has kind of gotten to a worse place in society, that art kind of has lost its meaning to society to some extent, that it seems like year after year art has a bit of a lesser meaning to society in general. Hopefully you get what I mean. But when I say that, again, it's not me like looking down on people, but it's just my kind of sadness because something that I really love isn't loved by other people. Yeah. Hopefully you fucking get what I mean. Again, this is a hard topic to talk about. Again, like art means everything to me. So obviously I would love to see that it would mean more to other people too. Yeah, but it feels like being like very heavily into art is a very kind of niche hobby these days. And in some ways it always has been, but I feel like today it's very, very niche. It's really hard to meet people in real life who are who have similar interests than me, and it makes me often feel like an outsider, and makes me feel sad, even though at the same time I kind of embrace being different and weird and a freak too. So it's kind of a multifaceted, double-edged sword in many ways. Yeah. So I don't support snobs, but there are certain things I'm worried about in the culture. I think that's a good way to sum it up. But maybe we should talk about counter-snobbery. So I think some people might kind of guess what this means from the term, but some people might have no idea what this means. So I think I summed it up fairly well in one of the comments on YouTube comment section here. So here I said, by counter-snobbery, I mean the people who are anti-snobbery, but then they themselves come across as snobby by their condescending tone when they describe how much they hate highbrow art and the people that love that art. So it's basically those people that you see in comment sections saying that I watched Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker, I found it boring, it made me fall asleep, and everybody who likes that film is pretending to like that film. They are pretentious snobs. So it's basically those type of people who don't like high art themselves, but then they feel like they have to put down the people who love high art. So it's very much like the snobby behavior, but they kind of turn it around in a way that they come from a pop culture background and they hate the high art, when snobs come from the high art background and they hate pop culture. Yeah, hopefully you get what I mean. And again, one of my viewers, Tony, actually left good comments about this topic. And Tony takes here kind of more of an intellectual, theoretical, you could say academic view on this stuff. But I'll read it. This is a fairly long comment, but we'll see how it goes. It's really a hatred of elitism. People don't want to be told anymore by cultural elites that they are, well, Philistines. So I think this might be something that, again, touches a nerve on some people. But again, obviously there was a time back in the past when art wasn't accessible to the regular person, that it was only the elites that consumed art in their castles where they had paintings, and obviously the elites were often the only people who could read, so they were the only ones who read great literature and philosophy and stuff. But I think one thing that I was thinking about before making this video is that art is more accessible now than ever, but even though it's accessible, it feels like people aren't into art. So I think that to me is very sad. Again, when you open Google, you could listen to whatever music you want, you could watch any film you want, you could look at any painting you want, basically. You could read any book you want, basically, and but nobody's doing it, or it's a very small percentage of people who are doing it, and that's quite sad. Yeah. And these days, again, the cultural elites aren't necessarily the people who have money, but they could be the people who just use their time to access that art. Again, I'm myself from a working class background. I'm very much relatively poor when it comes to Finland and Finnish people. Again, I'm not poor like globally speaking, but I'm quite poor when we compare me to many other Finnish people. Yeah, I'm from that type of meatballs and mashed potatoes type of family. Yeah, so, but somehow I found my way towards great art. I didn't have anybody to show the way there, basically. I just kind of found it on my own and fell in love with it. Yeah, so again, I'm not a part of an elite, quite the contrary. Yeah, I'm poor, I'm fat. Yeah, I'm definitely not an elite. Yeah, but I just happen to be into high art. I happen to love it. It means everything to me. I wouldn't be alive without it. I think if I didn't have access to great works of art, I probably would have killed myself years ago. And again, that's not an exaggeration, by the way. That's not rhetoric, it's true. Art means everything to me, and it is the only thing that helps me when I'm feeling bad. So yeah, and it's the only thing that, again, makes me feel like less of an outsider, that it kind of makes me accept who I am, because again, it just makes me feel good when lots of the things in society make me feel bad. So yeah, but let's continue with Tony's comment. So he says that at the risk of sounding pretentious, it's the phenomenon that Ortega Y. Gasset, again I probably mispronounced that, described in The Revolt of the Masses. And again, that's a book that I had heard about before, but I haven't read it, and it wasn't really on my radar before Tony mentioned it to me. So I definitely need to read that book. I actually read a bit about it after this comment, and it sounded very interesting. But I remember there was some class at the university, like maybe years ago, where that book was mentioned in some context, but I cannot remember why it was mentioned. Yeah. Then he says, actually, I've gotten to know quite a few people who know themselves to be pretty uncultured, and yet they are not only ashamed of it, but are kind of proudly, defiantly uncultured. So I think this is a very good point, and this actually, I think this sentence sums up the counter-snobbery very well, that these people who aren't into high art and who hate people who are into high art and they hate high art, that they're kind of very proud of the fact that they don't watch Tarkovsky or they don't read Dostoevsky or philosophy, that they think that they are somehow superior, that they don't actually like high culture or high art. And to me, it's very, very weird to be proud of it. Again, it's totally fine if you aren't into this stuff, but I don't think it's a thing that you should be proud of. Maybe it's more of a neutral thing. You shouldn't be ashamed of it neither, but you shouldn't be proud of it. Yeah. Then I understand the hatred of snobism, which is the cultural philistinism, as again risking pretentiousness, but I don't care, described by Hannah Arendt in Between Past and Future, and it's basically utilitarian elitism, the use of elitism to advance socially by climbing up the status ladder and not love of art and culture for art and culture's sake, which is for the enrichment of the mind and soul. A hatred of culture is something I still have a hard time understanding though. Yeah, me too, buddy. Me too, buddy, yeah. So he mentioned Hannah Arendt there, who I obviously know of, but I haven't read this particular text. And yeah, again, there have been obviously those snobs who don't actually really love art, but they consume art to kind of make themselves look kind of like better people and stuff, or climb up the status ladder like Tony says, and obviously that's a very toxic type of behavior. And again, those are the real snobs, obviously, that we should criticize, but I don't think people who just love high art are pretentious or snobby. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing to love high art and culture. because there's so many things that it does to one's mind and one's personhood and everything. But we'll talk about that stuff more in other videos. Yeah. But I think this was a great comment by Tony. Okay, I don't think it sounds pretentious. I think it's very good to also take a more of a theoretical and academic kind of viewpoint, methodology to this topic. Again, I haven't really read about this topic myself, although I definitely want to. And I'm sure there are many other things that one could read. Again, I, by the way, have this here, Anarchism and Other Essays by Emma Goldman, and there's one essay here called Majorities and Minorities, I think, that kind of tackles this, and there were some good quotes here that I thought, I actually forgot that I was gonna read them. Well, I'm not gonna read anything from the essay, but in basically the essay, Emma Goldman is kind of talking about kind of the commercialization of art and how kind of bad the majority's taste is basically. So this is kind of a snobby essay, even though I very much enjoyed reading it, and she makes some good points in there, but I think it's kind of snobby in a way. But if you want to read something about this topic, read the Majorities and Minorities by Emma Goldman. You probably can access it through internet as well. Yeah. And then Tony responded to my Counter-Snobbery comment that I mentioned earlier. And he says, oh yes, Counter-Snobbery is a real thing. The anger, violence, condescension that anti-snobs spew is very palpable. It's the rebellion Ortega Gasset speaks of. Yeah, so that was his kind of reply to me. Yeah, again, I think the counter-snobs are as bad as the snobs themselves. Yeah. But let's go through some other comments here. So Cine Art Therapy, who has left some great comments lately, said in one sentence, I mean this comment is longer, but in terms of snobbery, there's this kind of one relevant sentence. So they say, so I personally feel that categorizing people who want to encourage exploring international cinema, black and white films or more challenging films as snobs is a mischaracterization. Yeah, I think so too. Again, just someone consuming something doesn't mean that they're pretentious or snobs. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to think that you know when somebody else is like completely pretentious and they're just pretending to like something. Like, how is it so hard to believe that some people might actually like to challenge themselves by art and might enjoy art that they maybe don't understand immediately, but they have to work towards understanding it. Like, I really don't get that mindset, but yeah. But then there was some other comments as well. So the next comment is from Luke. So he left kind of two different points here, but only one of them is about snobbery. So for this video, I'll read the part about snobbery. So he says, in terms of film snobs, I don't have a problem with someone thinking international and art house cinema has more artistic value than more popular films. My problem is when these people outwardly denounce more popular filmmakers and the people that watch them as perhaps intellectually below, see Nolan and Wes Anderson. So I kind of talked about this earlier, that I think, again, we shouldn't denounce people as intellectually inferior if they don't like high art or world cinema or whatever, because there are many people who aren't into high art that are very smart, and that's what I also said on my reply to this comment. Yeah, but again, I think we should be able to criticize these filmmakers though, like Christopher Nolan, for example. I love talking shit about him and I'll never get tired of it. Again, I'm willing to admit that. Again, it's basically one of my favorite hobbies, talking shit about Nolan. And one of my viewers, Tony, kind of also said that here. Although when I talk shit about Nolan, I don't mean that everybody who likes Nolan is somehow inferior. Again, if you like Nolan, good for you. I don't like Nolan that much, but if you like him, good for you. But I think, for example, there is a big part of the Nolan fan base who kind of fall into that Counter-Snobbery and also snobbery paradigm. You could say that they are also very snobby themselves. Again, they say, like somewhat recently I saw this comment that it was in one of the Facebook film discussion groups that somebody said that they don't like Nolan, then somebody replied that, oh, you like Transformers, you just don't understand Nolan films. But I mean, Nolan films aren't that complex. And again, they have that kind of plot complexity, but they don't have thematic complexity. And that's one of my big gripes with Nolan, by the way, that again, I'm more interested in thematic complexity rather than kind of complexity in the plot. Yeah. So I think it's ridiculous to assume that somebody who doesn't like Nolan likes Transformers. I mean, I don't like Nolan, but look at the shelves back there. There's full of Godard and Fassbinder and Japanese New Wave and stuff. Again, there's no Transformers in there. So you can like and dislike Nolan from different perspectives. Yeah. But I think the kind of thing to say here is that we shouldn't denounce filmmakers just because they are popular. But if they happen to be popular and we want to be critical of them, of course we should be able to be critical of them. But I think it's pretty stupid to just hate on something just because it's popular. Yeah, again, even though I like high art a lot, there's obviously still lots of popular art that I also like, especially in TV shows that I'm gonna talk about in a video soon. My taste is very mainstream and America-centric. And also, of course, with films, I made that top 25 80s films video recently, and my favorite one, number one, was The Shining, which is by Stanley Kubrick, and that's obviously a very popular movie. And yeah, I was as hyped about Game of Thrones as all the other people were when it was coming out. I love Kendrick Lamar's The Pimp a Butterfly, one of the most popular albums that came out in the 2010s. That's one of my absolute favorite albums. So I love lots of more popular stuff as well. But I'm also very critical of much of the mainstream, and I think that's completely okay. As long as we obviously don't say that other people are intellectually inferior to us. Again, while I'm very much into high art, I don't think I'm some kind of a genius or anything because I like this stuff. I just happen to like it, but there are so many flaws in my thinking and in my opinions and everything, and I would never deny that. Yeah. Yeah. But let's read more comments. So this is basically Tony's response to this comment by Luke, and then my response to that. And Tony said that I've also been guilty of giving Nolanites a hard time. I don't think great art necessarily makes someone more intelligent in the sense of being smart, but I do think an appreciation for great art does wonders for empathy, sensitivity, emotional enrichment, and a more refined, sophisticated sense of beauty. Okay, I think the people who hate snobs hate the word sophisticated usually, but I really like Tony's comment here, and I really agree with it. And then he says that I truly believe only great art can have that effect on an individual. As allegedly high concept as Nolan films are, I don't think they can refine one's sensibilities and empathy, and that is an opinion I have no trouble owning up to. Yeah, I again agree with this comment. Yeah, and I responded to it that I'll never stop criticizing the toxic part of Nolan fan base. Again, not Nolan fans in general, but the toxic part of the Nolan fandom, the Nolanites or the Nolanoids, you could say, who think that Christopher Nolan is the second coming of Christ and any criticism that Nolan gets is invalid. Those types of people. But anyway, let's not talk about Nolan anymore. Yeah. But I think those were the relevant comments towards snobbery. And if we were to sum this topic up, is that, again, you shouldn't go talk down to people who like some type of art. Again, it's a beautiful thing that people enjoy whatever the type of art they do. And again, I think my philosophy is that people should try to be as happy as possible and enjoy their life as much as possible. So if only Marvel movies make you enjoy yourself, enjoy your time, then good for you. And if you like high art and you want to enjoy that and also gain something from the high art, like emotional enrichment or empathy or sensitivity or philosophical knowledge or whatever, good for you too. And again, I fall more into the latter category, but again, I also like to consume pop culture from time to time as well. And I think the true cinephilia, the true art lover probably does consume both high art and pop culture. I think it's good to consume a bit of everything and know what is out there. Yeah. And yeah, the counter snobs, again, I'm not a fan of them, but I guess I partly understand where their kind of anger comes from. It probably comes from seeing other people talking down to them, so then they kind of take that same mindset and become snobs themselves. It's kind of like someone being bullied in school might eventually become a bully themselves because they have that rage inside them. Yeah. And yeah, I'm sad about the current state of the art world, where art seems to have lost some of its meaning for society as a whole. And again, I'm sad about that. I'll talk about that probably in the future as well. And yeah, I'm gonna be continuing my art life, my art journey. Yeah, because that's what makes me happy. Yeah. But thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of snobs and counter snobs, or what do you think of art's place in society today. Sorry for the rambling. I really appreciate your continued support, and thanks for watching. Don't drink all the coke, and sayonara.